The most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who betrayed you. It's the version of you that keeps reopening the wound just to check if it still hurts. Pain only enters once. Suffering only survives because you keep feeding it. Today, I'll show you how to stop feeding it. The next person who tries to hurt you isn't the real threat. The real threat is the part of you that still believes their words carry more weight than your own size. Awareness. Listen closely. Because once this clicks, insults lose their teeth. Rejection loses its grip. Betrayal loses its poison. And the old wounds you've been carrying around like hidden stones in your chest stop deciding how you breathe, how you walk, how you love, and how you see yourself. Most people spend their entire lives trying to make the world gentler. They beg others to be kind. They hope to finally be understood. They wait on apologies that never show up. They lie awake, replaying conversations, asking themselves, why did they say that? Why did they do that? Why wasn't I enough? Why did I trust them? Why didn't I see it coming sooner? Meanwhile, the other person is sleeping soundly, and you're the one still sitting in the burning house, holding the match they dropped days, months, sometimes years ago. Here's the first truth. No one can keep hurting you without your participation. They may cause the original pain. They may speak harshly. They may leave, betray, mock, ignore, misjudge, accuse, or walk away. But the second arrow, the one that lingers, the one that replays their voice in your head, the one that turns a single moment into a lifelong prison, that arrow is usually held by your own hand. This isn't about blame. It's about freedom. Because if your hand is the one holding it, your hand is also the one that can set it down. Don't rush past this. Sit with it. Notice how uncomfortable that feels. The mind wants to insist, no, they did this to me. And yes, they did. But what are you doing right now? Are you feeding the wound with memory? Are you sharpening the insult by repeating it to yourself? Are you guarding your pain as if it's proof that you mattered? Sometimes we don't heal because the wound has become our evidence. We assume that letting go means accepting that what happened was fine. But letting go doesn't mean the action was justified. It means you stop letting that action rent space inside your nervous system. Someone can throw mud on your clothes. That's unpleasant. But if you pick that mud up every morning and rub it back into your skin, who's the one continuing the harm? The world might touch you once. Your own mind can touch you 1,000 times. This is why training the mind isn't decorative. It's survival. It's the inner gate. Without it, anyone with a careless tongue can walk into your temple and break your peace. With it, even the loudest insult stops at the door and finds no one inside willing to take it in. You might say, but words hurt. Yes, words can cut. But only where they land on a place you already doubt about yourself. If someone calls the sky filthy, the sky doesn't tremble. If someone calls the mountain weak, the mountain doesn't shrink. But if someone calls you unworthy, and some hidden part of you already fears it might be true, then that word turns into a blade. So the real work isn't controlling everyone's mouth. It's removing the hidden agreement living inside you. Look closely at what actually hurts you most. Usually it isn't what was said. It's what you feared it might confirm. Someone ignores your message, and suddenly you're not just waiting for a reply. You're 10 years old again, hoping somebody will choose you. Someone criticizes your effort, and suddenly you're not receiving feedback. You're back in an old room, feeling small, feeling watched, feeling like you'll never be enough. Someone leaves, and suddenly you're not just experiencing loss, you're meeting every abandonment you never fully processed. This is why a wise person doesn't only ask, who hurt me? A wise person asks, where did this get in? Which door did it use? Which old belief opened? Which fear answered back? Which old wound woke up and said, I recognize this pain? Once you find the door, you start to become free, because the next time someone knocks, that door is no longer left wide open. If you want to stop being hurt entirely, becoming cold isn't the answer. Many people misread what strength actually means. They think strength is feeling nothing. They build walls and call it healing. They grow suspicious and call it wisdom. They stop trusting and call it maturity. But a heart that can't be touched isn't strong. It's trapped. A closed fist is harder to injure, but it also can't receive anything. Real strength isn't the absence of feeling. It's to the ability to feel fully, without becoming a slave to whatever you feel. The river feels the stone, but it doesn't become the stone. The sky absorbs the storm, but it doesn't become the storm. The mirror reflects every face, but it keeps none of them. That's the training. Let feelings move through you, without letting them author your identity. Pain may visit. Humiliation may visit. Anger may visit. Sadness may visit. But you don't have to build a permanent home for every visitor. The moment you say, I am broken, you've turned an experience into an identity. The moment you say, I was betrayed, so I can't trust, you've turned one person's limitation into a lifelong rule. The moment you say, people always hurt me, you've sent your mind out hunting for proof. Be careful. The mind is a loyal servant to whatever instruction you keep repeating. Hand it a prison, and it will decorate the bars. Hand it freedom, and it will go looking for the key. Someone hurt you because they acted from their own level of awareness, their fear, their ignorance, their craving, their emptiness, their lack of discipline. But your suffering grows the moment you let their level of awareness become the measure of your worth. Someone who can't recognize gold doesn't turn gold into stone. Their blindness does change what the gold actually is. Remember that the next time you feel rejected, a lot of the time, people aren't rejecting you, they're rejecting the responsibility of seeing clearly. You've been carrying pain that was never yours to begin with. Some of it was handed to you by people who never learned to hold their own. They handed you their anger because they couldn't digest it. They handed you their shame because they couldn't face it. They handed you their silence because they were scared of the truth. They handed you their chaos because they never knew peace. And because you were sensitive, you absorbed it. Because you cared, you tried to make sense of it. Because you wanted harmony, you blamed yourself instead. But compassion without boundaries turns into self-abandonment. Understanding someone is not the same as giving them permission to keep wounding you. You can understand why a snake bites and still refuse to hold it against your chest. You can understand why someone is cold and still walk out of that winter. You can forgive a fire and still stop putting your hand inside it. This is where a lot of people get confused. They think forgiveness means returning to the same table, answering the same messages, reopening the same door, pretending the same knife has somehow become a flower. It hasn't. Forgiveness is an internal release. Access has to be earned. Forgiveness says, I won't poison myself with hatred. Boundaries say, I won't offer myself up to the same pattern again. The two can coexist. One heals the heart, the other protects the life. You have to learn the difference between pain and damage. Pain is a sensation that rises in the body and mind. Damage is what happens once pain becomes your teacher without your consent. Pain says, this hurts. Damage says, this will always hurt. Pain says, I lost something. Damage says, I am lost. Pain says, someone left. Damage says, everyone will leave. To be free, you have to interrupt that translation. You have to stop your mind from turning a single moment into a permanent prophecy. When someone speaks to you cruelly, pause. Don't react at the speed of your wound. The wound is fast because it's had years of practice. Awareness, at first, is slower, like a young tree bending in the wind. But if you can pause for even a single breath, you create space. In that space, your old self wants revenge, defensiveness, justification, or collapse. In that same space, your trained self whispers, wait, look clearly. Is this true? Is this useful? Is this even mine? Is this worth my peace? Most pain continues simply because people react before they observe. Someone sends a cold message, and you send your dignity right back at them. Someone raises their voice, and you hand over your center. Someone disrespects you, and you try to prove your worth to a person who'd already shown they don't know how to recognize it. That's like asking a dry well to quench your thirst. A wise person doesn't argue with an empty well. A wise person walks toward water. Don't make your peace dependent on someone else's understanding. This is one of the strongest chains there is. You think, I can't rest until they get what they did. I can't move forward until they admit it. I can't heal until they apologize the right way. But that hands your freedom straight to the very person who hurt you. You end up waiting outside their locked door, holding your healing out in a begging bowl. Why would you give them that kind of power? Sometimes they'll never understand. Sometimes they understand perfectly and still won't say it. Sometimes their ego outweighs their honesty. Sometimes their version of events protects them from ever seeing themselves clearly. Let them keep that version. You don't need their confession to become whole. A scar doesn't need the knife to apologize before it closes. Your nervous system might not believe this yet. It may still shake at the mention of their name, still tighten when you remember their voice. That isn't weakness. That's your body trying to protect you based on what it learned the hard way. Be patient with your body. Don't insult your own healing process. You can't punish yourself into peace. You can't shame yourself into strength. Sit with your body the way you'd sit beside a frightened child. Speak gently. Breathe slowly. Say, we're safe now. That moment is over. We don't live there anymore. There's a kind of training hidden in every hurt. Not because suffering is beautiful, but because awareness can put anything to use. Betrayal can teach discernment. Rejection can teach you to belong to yourself. Criticism can teach humility without collapse. Loneliness can teach you to befriend yourself. Loss can teach impermanence. Disrespect can teach boundaries, but only once you stop demanding that pain be fair and start asking it to be useful instead. Don't waste your pain. If it arrived, learn from it. If it broke something fake, be grateful for the breaking. If it revealed where you were too attached, study that attachment. If it revealed someone's true character, believe what you saw. If it exposed where you abandoned yourself, go back there and pick yourself back up. Pain that's examined turns into wisdom. Pain that's repeated unconsciously turns into personality. Some of you aren't actually protecting your heart. You're protecting your story. You say, I'm the one who always gets hurt. I'm the one people use. I'm the one who gives too much. I'm the one who never gets chosen. But notice, even a painful story can feel safe simply because it's familiar. The unknown freedom scares you more than the known suffering does. So you keep choosing whatever confirms the story. Then you call it fate. Interrupt it today. Not loudly, not dramatically, not through a post or an announcement or a performance of healing. Interrupt it in the small, private moment when the old pattern asks for your obedience. When the urge rises to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, breathe and choose silence instead. When the urge rises to chase someone who enjoys being chased, breathe and choose stillness. When the urge rises to replay the insult for the 20th time, breathe and return to the present moment. This is how a new life gets built, not through grand declarations, but through invisible victories. You can't be hurt the same way once you actually know who you are. That sounds simple, but it's rare. Most people know their name, their job, their face, their preferences, their wounds, their history. But they don't know the awareness underneath all of it. They think they are their thoughts, so every thought becomes an order. They think they are their emotions, so every emotion becomes the weather of their entire life. They think they are their reputation, so every opinion becomes a verdict. They think they are their past, so every memory becomes a chain. Sit quietly and look. A thought appears, you notice it, which means you're not just the thought. An emotion rises, you notice it, which means you're not just the emotion. A memory returns. You notice it, which means you're not just the memory. An insult echoes. You notice it, which means you're not the echo. You're the one aware of the echo. This recognition is where real invincibility begins. Not the kind the world imagines. Not never crying, not never caring, not never feeling heartbreak. This invincibility means nothing outside of you can permanently steal your inner seat unless you choose to leave it. People can disturb the surface. They can create waves, but they can't own the ocean, and they can't become the depth. Once you know yourself as the depth, the storms on the surface lose their authority over you. A person who insults you is just showing you their own inner climate. A person who lies is revealing their relationship with the truth. A person who betrays you is showing what their desire can make them sacrifice. A person who mocks you is exposing the poverty of their own compassion. Why would you take their behavior and let it become your identity? If a dog barks at the moon doesn't come down to argue. It just keeps shining. This doesn't mean becoming passive. Don't confuse peace with weakness. Peace can say no. Peace can walk away. Peace can end a conversation. Peace can block a number. Peace can leave the room. Peace can file a complaint. Peace can speak the truth directly. But peace doesn't lose itself while doing any of it. That's the difference. A reaction throws the sword with shaking hands. A response holds the sword with clarity. Before speaking from hurt, ask yourself, am I trying to be understood, or am I trying to make them feel what I felt? Am I seeking truth, or am I seeking control? Am I expressing a boundary, or am I begging the same person to become someone different? These questions can save you years of suffering, because a lot of arguments aren't really attempts to solve anything. They're attempts to force someone to become a person they brengta and are not ready to be. You don't need to hate people in order to walk away from them. Hatred is still a rope. Anger might help you stand up at first, but it can't be your permanent home. Stay there too long, and the person who hurt you becomes the architect of your entire inner world. You start choosing based on them, speaking based on them, distrusting based on them, proving yourself based on them. They're gone, but you're still serving their shadow. Freedom is when your next step is chosen by wisdom, not by the wound. You may remember what happened, but it doesn't get to decide everything. You may recognize danger, but you don't see it everywhere now. You may have boundaries, but your heart isn't buried. You may be cautious, but you're not closed off. That balance is the art of it. One day, someone will say something that used to break you, and you'll notice it lands differently. It still touches you, but it doesn't get in. It still makes a sound, but it doesn't become law. You'll feel a small space open up inside you, a quiet room that wasn't there before. In that room, you won't need to attack or collapse. You'll simply see. This is the moment training becomes real. The world teaches you to polish the image instead. Make it impressive, then nobody can hurt you. Become successful, beautiful, wealthy, admired, desired, feared. Then you'll finally be safe. But that's false safety. The stronger the image, the more terrified you become of anyone scratching it. If your peace depends on an image, every opinion turns into a weapon. The real work isn't polishing the mask. It's getting to know the face underneath it. What are you without applause? What are you without the relationship? What are you without the approval? What are you without the role you play for other people? What's left when the world misunderstands you? If you can sit with that and not run, you start to meet the version of yourself that can't be hurt in the old way. Not because life can't touch this version, but because this version doesn't need the world to constantly confirm that it exists. A lot of your pain comes from outsourcing your worth. You hand pieces of yourself to other people and say, please hold this carefully. But not everyone has clean hands. So when they drop it, you feel shattered. Take it back. Take back the peace you gave the parent who never praised you. Take back the peace you gave the partner who chose convenience over honesty. Take back the peace you gave the friend who only valued you when you were useful. Take back the peace you gave to the crowd, to the comment, to the comparison, to the old mistake. Gather yourself. No one can protect what you keep unconsciously giving away. Every time you need someone's approval before you can breathe, you give away the key. Every time you need someone to regret losing you before you can move on, you give away the key. Every time you need someone to treat you fairly before you can treat yourself with respect, you give away the key. Take the key back, not with anger, but with remembrance. You might ask, how do I take it back? Start with your attention. Attention is life energy. Whatever you feed with attention grows roots. If you keep watching their life, checking their messages, replaying their words, imagining their thoughts, you're watering the tree of attachment. Don't say you want peace while feeding the disturbance every day. Your practice has to be honest. Remove unnecessary contact with whatever keeps reopening the wound, not because you're weak, but because healing needs the right environment. A seed doesn't become a tree by getting dug up every morning to check if it's growing. Give your peace room to grow without constantly exposing it to the same wind that broke it in the first place. Then train the body. Hurt doesn't only live in the mind. It sits in the chest, the stomach, the throat, the jaw, the shoulders. When you think of them, your body reacts before your philosophy even arrives. So breathe into the body. Walk slowly. Stretch. Sweat. Sit upright. Plant your feet on the ground. Relax your jaw. Lengthen your exhale. Teach the body that the memory isn't danger. The mind learns through insight. The body learns through repeated safety. Every day, practice not reacting to small discomforts. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Breathe. Someone speaks sharply. Breathe. A plan changes. Breathe. A message gets delayed. Breathe. The weather's too hot. The line's too long. The noise is too loud. Breathe. This isn't a small thing. This is the training ground. If you can't meet small irritations with awareness, how will you meet betrayal, grief, humiliation, or loss? A warrior trains in ordinary moments, long before the real battle ever shows up. Pain reveals exactly where you lack inner discipline. That might sound harsh, but it's actually a gift. When one sentence ruins your entire day, it's showing you exactly where you need training. When one person's silence makes you abandon your own self-respect, it's showing you where you need love. When one piece of criticism makes you want to quit, it's showing you where your identity has grown too fragile. Don't resent the mirror. Use it. The person who can't be hurt isn't the person everyone treats perfectly. That person doesn't exist. The person who can't be hurt in the old way is the one who's betraying themselves after being betrayed by someone else. That's the secret. The deepest wound is often not what they did. It's what you did to yourself afterward. You ignored your own intuition. You begged for crumbs. You stayed long after the pattern was obvious. You spoke against your own dignity. You called your own discomfort overthinking. You abandoned your own inner child just to keep someone else comfortable. So healing has to include self-forgiveness, not the weak kind that excuses everything and learns nothing, but the strong kind that says, I see what I allowed, because I didn't yet know my worth. I see where I ignored my own body's signals. I see where I mistook intensity for love, attention for care, words for character, familiarity for safety. I see it, and I refuse to punish myself forever. I will become wiser instead. There's a version of you waiting underneath the habit of being hurt. This version doesn't chase clarity from unclear people. This version doesn't mistake anxiety for love. This version doesn't need to win every argument. This version doesn't perform pain just to be believed. This version doesn't turn every ending into self-hatred. This version watches, learns, chooses, and moves forward. You meet this version through practice, not fantasy. Practice when nobody's clapping. Practice when the old craving returns. Practice when loneliness whispers. Text them. Practice when pride whispers, prove yourself. Practice when fear whispers, accept less. Practice when anger whispers, destroy them. Practice when sadness whispers disappear. You're not commanded by every whisper. You're the one who can hear the whisper and still choose differently. This is the difference between impulse and freedom. Impulse says, I feel it, so I must obey it. Freedom says, I feel it, so I will observe it. Impulse says, I'm hurt, so I must hurt back. Freedom says, I'm hurt, so I must protect my clarity. Impulse says, I'm lonely, so I'll go back to what wounded me. Freedom says, I'm lonely, so I'll sit with myself until I stop mistaking poison for home. Don't underestimate the power of silence. Silence isn't always avoidance. Sometimes silence is simply refusing to feed a fire that wants your breath. Some people don't actually want the truth. They want a reaction. They know exactly which old strings to pull. They know which sentence makes you defend, explain, justify, or collapse. The moment you stop dancing to that music, they might call you cold. Let them. A person who benefited from your lack of boundaries will often label your new peace as cruelty. Your responsibility isn't to be understood by everyone. It's to not abandon the truth just to stay likable. Plenty of people get hurt because they're addicted to being seen as good. They'd rather quietly betray themselves than openly disappoint someone else. They say yes while their soul says no. They smile while resentment builds up in their body. They call it kindness, but it's really fear wearing perfume. Real kindness has a spine. It doesn't need to be cruel, but it does need to be clear. I can't do that. I won't accept being spoken to that way. I need space. This isn't healthy for me. I wish you well, but I'm stepping away. These aren't weapons. They're doors closing with dignity. The more clearly you speak now, the less your heart has to scream later. People will test the new version of you, not always on purpose, but when you shift your pattern, the old world tries to pull you back into your old role. The person used to your over-explaining will provoke you. The person used to your constant availability will try to guilt you. The person used to your silence won't like your new voice. The person used to your forgiveness without change will call your new boundary harsh. Expect this. Don't treat resistance as proof that you're that wrong. Sometimes resistance just means the chain can